Today, we're discussing how to influence and persuade someone effectively. How do you influence and persuade others? If that was something you could do effectively, how much better off would you be? In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that and give you practical things you can do today that will level up your influence and persuasion game. Think about how all areas of your life would change if you were able to persuade and influence people effectively. And I'm not talking about coercion or manipulation, but truly influencing and persuading others to get the most out of them and the most out of your own life. I'm here to tell you it will drastically change your life. So let's don't waste any more time and let's jump into this by first laying a groundwork what persuasion and influence means. I then want to cover how you use persuasion and influence both the right way but also the wrong way. And finally, I want to give you some real-world strategies that will level up your persuasion and influence game that you can actually use right now. If you're ready, let's go. What does it mean to persuade and influence someone? True persuasion and influence implies a force that brings about a change. But it isn't forced, if that makes sense. It is something you or I see in someone else that causes something inside of us to want to change. Or through that person's actions or words, we want to do something. We're persuaded to do something. And I think all of us at some point in our life has been influenced for good or persuaded for good. Take a look at the good book. Look at Christ's life, right? In his life, he was all about persuasion and influence by the good things that he did, by how he led people. They were attracted and drawn to him. They were persuaded and influenced the right way to do good things. They wanted to be a better version of themselves because what they saw in this individual who was leading the right way. But if we look at the term influencer today, it has a completely different meaning. And a lot of times it's thrown around at will. In today's terms, it's somebody who has a lot of followers, people that follow them, and usually on social media. And sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not quite so real. And I've seen it in today's world where there are some influencers that do some great things. There's a gentleman who I grew up with. He and his wife have started kind of a funny Instagram page that people follow them. He has over 1 million followers just by some of the quirky, funny things that them and their family do. And it does influence for good because he's a good individual, he's a good guy. And a lot of these people, he attracts people and influences them in the right way. So not to take away from the influencers in today's world, but I think there's a right way to influence and a wrong way, which we'll get into. Let's talk about that right now. The correct way to influence, right? It has to come natural because you're providing some sort of positive impact in someone's life. I was just at a conference not too long ago with a good friend of mine, and I knew he's a good guy, and I've been around him for the last 20 years of my life, but I was at a conference that he was one of the leaders at the conference. And I remember just seeing people around him, talking to him, walking up to him, people from stage talking about him, that he had had a positive influence in these individuals' life for a long, long time, right? And I could tell it was natural. It wasn't forced. They weren't doing it because they felt they needed to. They did it because sincerely, based on what he's done for them, his actions, his words, his influence, and persuaded them in their lives to do things better, more effectively, or just be a better version of themselves. And obviously there's a wrong way to influence, right? If you look at the social media scene, a lot of times that might be buying followers, purchasing followers, or doing crazy things that attract followers. And not that those might be bad. I've seen some pretty funny influencers out there that I like to follow just because I need a good laugh every now and again. But I think a wrong way to influence is coercion, right? When you coerce somebody to follow you, to lead you, that's the wrong way. I remember one time I was building a home up in Idaho. I remember the contractor I had hired had a good friend of mine that I'd known for a long time working for him. And eventually the good friend of mine quit. And I said, "Why'd you quit?" And he says, anytime I showed up at the job site, he was yelling at me, telling me to do things. And one day he came up to me and said, "Hey, look at this hat. You see what it says on the hat? It says boss. So whatever I say, you need to do." And that's the wrong way to influence. He just had it at that point. That was a culmination of things that eventually led to him saying, "I'm done with this. I want to move on. I don't want to be part of this anymore." And honestly, titles don't mean anything. People don't want to follow titles. I love the saying, nobody cares how much you know till they know how much you care. And that really is the essence of persuasion and influence, is when people know how much you care about them, it can lead them to great things. So let's talk about how to influence. It starts by doing the little things the right way. In many ways, that goes unnoticed. However, if somebody is extremely consistent in the little things that they do, that shows up in a big way. A lot of times we say that performance, or how you perform on a big stage, isn't what you did on the big stage, but it's the many hours behind closed doors that people do not see that is consistent that show up on the big stage. And the same thing in life when you're persuading or influencing others. If you can lead by doing the right things, the small things correctly every single day, you are going to see some massive benefits in your life. And you're going to see people that want to be persuaded or influenced influenced by you and naturally gravitate towards you. It's just like somebody who goes on a fitness journey, right? If they're doing something every single day that people might not see, whether it's counting their macros, walking, exercising, all these things add up to a result. At the end of the day, people say, oh my gosh, that person looks great, but it wasn't that instant, it wasn't some great big thing that all of a sudden just happened. It was all these little things that led to that, what people see at that point. And another thing I think that helps with persuasion and influence is providing value. If you're constantly that person that's providing value, that's going to attract people, and people are going to be persuaded and influenced by what you do. A good friend of mine, he is all about that. He would always ask me all the time, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And it was sincere, and I knew it was sincere. And the fact that he said that to me, I know he said that to a million different people, and he did things to benefit their lives and to help their businesses grow. And he is somebody who has a massive influence now in the right way. And just to drive this story home, one of my favorite pictures or depictions of success is there's a picture, and you have two guys that are both tunneling for gold. One's tunneling this way, one's tunneling this way as well. And we can see it in the picture, but obviously those that are tunneling and picking their way towards what they're hoping is gold, they can't see where the gold's at. And in both pictures, the gold is right here, and there's an individual who's probably about this far, about 1 inch away from breaking through the wall and encountering gold. And he's still picking, going at it. The other person is doing the same thing, but all of a sudden you see him walking back the other way with his pick on his shoulder, giving up. Even though they're both almost there, and a lot of times in life, that's exactly it, right? By continuing to do things each and every day consistently, you're that much closer to your overall goal. And when you're that place, when you're doing those consistent things, people will be persuaded and influenced by you effectively to do things that you would want them to do because they trust you, they know who you are, they believe in you, and they've seen you do it. And these are some things that I've done in my life, my work life, that have benefited me, but I'd love to hear from you. How have you persuaded and influenced people the right way? Let's engage in a dialogue, leave a comment. Also, just for visiting my page here, watching this episode, I've got a free gift for you. It's aaronsalstraining.com. Click on the link below. It's 10 of our best sales training modules called Persuasion and Influence, and we typically sell it for $1,000. It's a free gift for you. Just click on the link. As always, thanks for stopping by. Have an amazing day.